10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 229. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 229 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. Hope everybody is doing well out there, staying safe and healthy. I'm really excited about this week's episode. Of course, we are bringing you our tune of the month, as we do at the end of every month. And we're going to be wrapping up our series on using blues phrasing over less common places where you would think about that kind of playing happening. So we're going to go back to our old friend rhythm changes, and we're going to explore playing some blues material intermingled with some bebop stuff and then some pretty out kind of modern sounding stuff too. Before we jump into the show, just wanted to give a quick shout out to some new patrons. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, these are the people that support the podcast through a monthly donation. And in return for that, they get PDFs for every single episode. And now we've started a new thing where we're including recorded exercises for each episode independent of the actual podcast episode. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to those new folks. Thank you to our new $3 patron, Gabe. And thank you to 3 new $5 patrons. Thank you to Michael, Sand Channel, and John. Thank you guys so much for choosing to support the podcast. And I hope you guys are really enjoying that new $5 tier. If you are somebody that would like to become a patron of the podcast, help support us, keep things moving, keep the podcast coming at you every week, you could do that by going to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, clicking on one of the Patreon banners. Go and sign yourself up for either a $3 or a $5 donation each month, and you will get instant access to every single episode that we've ever done and the materials that go along with them. And I just want to reiterate how much I appreciate all of the patrons out there. You really are the ones that keep the show going. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for keeping this show coming at you for 229 episodes at this point. Okay, enough of that. Let's jump into today's episode. So we've been talking about using blues phrasing. We talked about doing it over a 2-5-1. We talked about doing it over a 3-6-2-5-1. And then we took a look at some of my favorite musicians putting this concept into action. So what I want to give you this week is an actionable, playable etude where you can actually hear some of this stuff and you can go through and you can kind of pick out where I'm using the blues phrasing, how it kind of fits in with everything else. And you can tear that thing apart a little bit and find some lessons in there. So before we do anything, let's listen to a recording of the etude that I've prepared for you, so that you can kind of hear what you're in for this week. And what I would like you to listen for upon the first listen of this etude is I want you to listen for if you can hear any of that blues material. It should, at this point, if you've been working on the stuff from the podcast this month, it should jump out to you. It should be something that's kind of in your ears. And I'm hoping that when you hear a musician, or in this case, the etude that I'm going to be playing for you, you could hear where they use that kind of stuff. And it sort of creeps into your ears and creeps into your concept of how to build your solos and where you can possibly use some of those things. So this is going to be a 2-chorus etude over rhythm changes. I recorded it kind of slow, but I'm going to give you a couple of different backing tracks this week. If you're signed up for that $5 level, you're going to get some nice and slow ones, and then you're also going to get some fast ones because it does sound better at a faster tempo. So here is the etude. Let's check this out first. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed that, and hopefully you could hear some of the spots where I was thinking, following the changes very, very closely. And then some of the other places I'm really glossing over all of them and trying to build an effective swing in, catchy blues phrase through some of that stuff. So let's dive into a couple of specifics, and then I'm going to sort of turn you loose to look at the rest of the etude and figure out what's going on with it. So if you notice in the first four measures, the initial four measures, if you were to look at that, you would realize that I am playing in a very, very strong bebop fashion, right? Where I am really changing what I play every time a chord hits. And I'm really sort of weaving my way in and out of that 1-6-2-5, 3-6-2-5. I think you could probably hear that right off the bat. But then in the second four bars, so measures 5 and 6, you'll see that I kind of revert into just using that minor, major pentatonic. And then in measures 7 and 8, I go right back to playing some bebop. So that's kind of the theme of this etude, is that it could change, right? I could be playing bebop, and then one measure later, or maybe even in the same measure, I could sort of switch to that more blues style of playing. And that's really what I want you to focus on when you're looking through this etude. Where do I kind of make that distinction? Now, one thing that I do keep pretty steady throughout the entire etude is when we come to the bridge, I do prefer to play in a more bebop style over a rhythm changes bridge, because I feel like that's just such a great place to really not show off your skills, but utilize your skills when it comes to playing bebop. Like a lot of those chromatic devices that we use, or some substitutions. And I just really like the sound of that, because it changes the sound of this progression so much. The bridge is just such a breath of fresh air when it comes to rhythm changes. And it's just my favorite part of the progression. So I tend to really, really try to play very specific things there. And you'll notice that nowhere in the bridge of either of those choruses do I ever kind of revert back to that blues style of playing. That's just something I wanted to point out. But most of this week is really going to be on you to look through and figure out when I'm doing it. And I think you'll be able to find it like no problem, because it's not that, difficult of a device. We're just using that pentatonic scale like pretty much all the time when we're playing that blues stuff. So anytime you see that, or anytime you see me playing like a repeated phrase that contains the notes in that pentatonic, that's really where I'm going for that blues sound. You're going to hear it anyway. All right. So not that much from me this week. I'd prefer to just have you dive into the assignment and really do your thing with that. All right, let's listen to the etude one more time, and then we will close out the episode. All right, so I hope you have a lot of fun with that etude. I know I had a lot of fun writing it, and I'm going to practice that etude too because I feel like it sorted out a lot of my thoughts on how to use this stuff. So it's going to be beneficial for me too, which is one of my favorite things about writing this stuff for you guys. Let me know if you have any questions. 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Community Facebook group is the place to ask me those questions. We've got a great community over there, great discussions. If you haven't joined us yet, please do. We would love to have you. If you want to get signed up for Patreon, get that etude in every key and also gain some play-alongs and be able to play along with me playing the etude. Wow, that was kind of a mouthful. Make sure you go to our Patreon site, which you can find at 10minutejazzlesson.com. Click on one of the Patreon banners, go over there, pledge your monthly support, and get instant access to all of the materials over there. Thank you again to everybody who signed up this week and anybody who has signed up in general. We really appreciate you. All right, everybody, have a great weekend. We will talk to you soon. Stay safe and healthy. Bye.